ourselves first. I want to know the behaviors that instantly attract women. Let's break down the science. Attraction science repeatedly demonstrates that one of the most influential behaviors women respond to is a man's ability to regulate his emotional state in real time, especially under subtle social pressure. Emotional regulation doesn't mean suppressing feelings or acting robotic. It means that a man can experience stress, curiosity, disappointment, or excitement without letting those emotions distort his judgment or communication. Psychological research repeatedly shows that individuals with stable emotional responses create an atmosphere of predictability, and predictability increases perceived safety, a critical component in early interaction. When a man shows he can handle uncertainty without overreacting, losing composure, or shifting radically between emotional extremes, women unconsciously associate that stability with a majority, self-trust, and long-term compatibility. This underlying sense of security tends to trigger a deeper interest because it indicates he can sustain meaningful interpersonal connections without vulnerability. Second major behavioral indicator, individual social attunement and the capacity to recognize and interpret subtle cues that emerge naturally in conversation. Attunement isn't mind reading, it's the skill of observing slight changes in facial micro expressions, posture adjustments, speech pacing, and energy shifts. Women on average tend to be more attuned to emotional nuance in conversation, which means they naturally notice whether a man picks up on their signals or overlooks them. And when a man notices these micro-level cues and responds proportionally, such as adjusting his tone when she becomes thoughtful, slowing the conversation when she appears reflective, or increasing energy when she becomes lively, he demonstrates a form of social intelligence that many women interpret as rare and valuable. This responsiveness makes interactions smoother and more engaging because it shows he's communicating with her rather than simply talking at her. Another crucial behavioral factor rooted in attraction science involves the subtle interplay between verbal communication and vocal tone. Research shows that women often evaluate a man's vocal patterns, including pacing, cadence, and micropauses, as indicators of his psychological state. A steady, unheard voice suggests confidence, presence, and groundedness, whereas a rush speech or inconsistent tone often signals anxiety or social discomfort. Women may not consciously analyze these details, but they feel their impact. A man who regulates his voice effectively creates an environment that feels calm yet engaging, assertive yet not threatening. This vocal stability is often perceived as a sign of self-possession and the ability to be internally centered and centrally aware at the same time. Over time, voice regulation functions as a constant, subtle reinforcement of attraction because it mirrors emotional stability and cognitive clarity. Authenticity is another high impact behavior consistently supported by attraction research. Women evaluate authenticity by examining whether a man's spoken words align with his nonverbal behavior, such as facial expressions, gesture, posture, and micro reactions. Inconsistencies, even small ones, tend to activate inner caution because the brain interprets them as potential signs of a hidden motivates or insecurity. Conversely, when a man acts and speaks in a manner that feels congruent, he signals a psychological alignment. The inner consistency between identity, intent, and and expression as a congruence is attractive because it demonstrates that he is grounded in his values and not performing for approval. Authentic individuals are easier to trust, easier to understand, and easier to form emotional connections with attraction. This makes sense when a woman senses that a man's other behavior reliably reflects his inner orientation. Initiative is another behavior that plays a major role in shaping attraction. Although it's frequently misunderstood, initiative doesn't refer to dominance, aggressiveness, or trying to impress through bold, unnecessary actions. Instead, it refers to the ability to take small leadership steps without hesitation, such as suggesting a plan, offering a clear opinion, or guiding the conversation away from confusion. These behaviors communicate a decisiveness, and a decisiveness is often perceived as a sign of confidence and reliability. Women frequently interpret initiative as emotional presence, the ability to participate actively rather than passively in social dynamics. When done without arrogance or force, initiative makes interactions feel more fluid and reduces the cognitive burden on the other person, which strengthens attraction by increasing ease and reducing ambiguity. Humor remains a powerful driver of attraction, but its effectiveness depends heavily on timing, emotional intention, and contextual awareness. Women tend to respond best to humor that lightens attention, creates a moment of shared amusement, or highlights a cognitive flexibility. Psychological research suggests that humor serves as a proxy for mental agility, the ability to reinterpret situations, shift perspective, and create emotional contrast. However, humor that's a defensive, aggressive, belittling, or poorly timed often has the opposite effect. What matters most isn't the joke itself, but the emotional subtext. Humor that conveys ease, playfulness, and social awareness enhances attraction because it signals adaptive thinking and inner security. Spatial awareness represents another subtle yet powerful behavioral cue that influences female attraction. This involves how a man navigates his physical presence, the distance he maintains, the posture he adopts, and the way he adjusts in shared environments. Maintaining too little space can signal neediness or lack of boundaries, while maintaining excessive distance may indicate insecurity or emotional withdrawal. Men who strike the right balance, respectful distance, and combined with open posture communicate both confidence and consideration. Women tend to perceive these special behaviors as markers of social intelligence because they indicate that he is aware of how his presence affects the shared environment without trying to intimidate or impress. Subscribe now for more psychology-backed attraction tips. Boundary setting also plays a significant role in attraction dynamics. Contrary to widespread assumptions, boundaries are not about rejecting people or controlling situations. They're about clarifying personal standards and respecting one's own time, energy, and emotional bandwidth. When a man communicates his limits calmly and without defensiveness, for example, by clarifying his availability, expressing discomfort respectfully, or declining behaviors he finds disrespectful, he signals self-respect and emotional maturity. Women tend to interpret clear boundaries as evidence that a man values himself and therefore is less likely to tolerate unhealthy relational dynamics. Paradoxically, healthy boundaries make many women more attractive because they indicate he is not driven by desperation or external validation. Consistency in behavior is another foundational determinant of attraction. Women often become very when a man fluctuates dramatically between enthusiasm and detachment, confidence and insecurity, warmth and coldness. These oscillations introduce a psychological unpredictability which creates emotional friction. Consistency, on the other hand, reinforces a psychological safety. When a man behaves in a stable, coherent manner across different contexts and moods, he signals that he can maintain relational presence without volatility. This is particularly important in early attraction when women subconsciously evaluate not just who he is in the moment but who he might be over time. A critical behavior supported by attraction research is a man's ability to maintain inner priorities rather than reorganizing his entire life around someone he has just met. Women often notice how quickly a man abandons his routines, goals, or commitments, and this rapid overinvestment tends to lower attraction because it signals weak boundaries and an unstable sense of identity. Conversely, when a man remains consistent with his existing responsibilities, whether related to career, health, creative pursuits, or social connections, he communicates that his life has a structure and purpose independent of romantic interest. This balance is attractive because it shows he values connection without losing self-direction. It signals that he is capable of partnership rather than dependence. Curiosity-driven conversation is another behavior that enhances attraction, but the distinction between genuine curiosity and strategic questioning is important. Women tend to respond positively when a man shows sincere interest in understanding how she thinks rather than interrogating her or fishing for validation. A genuine curiosity is evidenced by follow-up questions that expand on her perspective, thoughtful pauses that give space for reflection, and responses that show his processing rather than performing. These behaviors communicate menopause and engagement, reinforcing that he values understanding over approval. Women often interpret curiosity as a sign of emotional openness and cognitive depth, which strengthen both attraction and rapport. Adaptability also plays a meaningful role in attracting women, especially in dynamic or unpredictable environments. Attraction science shows that adaptability, the ability to adjust behavior without losing one's core identity, is linked to emotional resilience. Women often evaluate how a man responds to minor inconveniences, changes in plans, or social unpredictability. A man who remains flexible yet compose signals that he can navigate complexity without becoming overwhelmed. This behavioral adaptability suggests long-term compatibility because it shows he can handle life's variability without causing unnecessary conflict or stress. Adaptability isn't about Passivity it's about navigating external shifts without inner collapse. Tensional balance is another subtle but influential factor in attraction. Men who hyper-focus on a woman too intensely often create an impression of scarcity as through they lack alternative sources of interest or stimulation. Conversely, men who seem distracted or disengaged may appear indifferent or emotionally unavailable. The optimal state is attentional equilibrium, the ability to give a focused presence during conversation while maintaining a broader awareness of the environment. And this balance signals that he is socially grounded rather than desperate or aloof. Women tend to respond favorably to this equilibrium because it indicates confidence, awareness, and a high degree of interpersonal confidence. Long-term attraction research highlights that reliability demonstrated through small consistent actions is a major factor in shaping female interest. Women notice whether a man follows through on small commitments, responds when he says he will, and maintains a stable pattern of communication. Reliability is a behavioral representation of integrity, and integrity is one of the most universally valued traits in partner selection. When a man demonstrates that his words and actions align consistently, women often perceive this as evidence of emotional strength and relational potential. In contrast, inconsistency triggers psychological caution because it signals instability or lack of sincerity. Another powerful attraction factor is a man's relationship with challenge and not dramatic adversity about everyday obstacles. Women often observe how a man handles setbacks, whether large or small. A man who collapses under pressure or blames external forces signals fragility. Conversely, a man who acknowledges a difficulty without dramatization and responds with a measured problem solving signals emotional maturity. This approach to challenge demonstrates what psychologists call stress processing capacity, the ability to handle difficulty without losing coherence. Women often find this trait attractive because it indicates stability, confidence, and resilience. Self-maintenance behaviors such as physical health, grooming, and personal presentation also play a significant role in attraction. This is not about superficiality, it's about signaling self-respect. Research shows that when a man puts reasonable effort into his appearance, it communicates discipline, organization, and personal responsibility. Women tend to evaluate these behaviors not as signs of vanity but as indicators that he values himself and is capable of managing his life effectively. Conversely, neglecting basic self-maintenance signals carelessness or lack of inner structure. The goal isn't perfection but consistency and intentionality. Cognitive clarity is another behavior that influences attraction more than many people realize. Women often respond positively when a man communicates ideas clearly, organizes his thoughts logically, and expresses opinions coherently. This clarity indicates cognitive discipline and a well-structured inner world. Men who ramble excessively, contradict themselves, or rely on a vague language often generate confusion, which can weaken attraction. Clarity doesn't require intellectual superiority, it requires self-awareness and the ability to articulate one's inner experience in a grounded, comprehensible way. A subtle yet influential factor in involves the rhythm of conversational reciprocity. Women tend to respond best when a man balances speaking and listening in a way that feels natural rather than strategic. Excessive silence signals emotional distance, while excessive dominance signals insecurity. The most attractive conversational rhythm is dynamic, responsive to context, fluid, and adaptable. Women often interpret a balanced conversation as evidence of social competence because it reflects an ability to navigate interpersonal flow without rigidity or performance. Presence, the ability to stay mentally and emotionally engaged, is arguably one of the most potent attraction drivers. Presence involves a full attention, minimal inner distraction, and genuine engagement with the moment. A psychological research shows that many women quickly detect when a man's attention drops due to nervousness, comparison, or social anxiety. Conversely, when he remains grounded and focused, the interaction becomes a more rewarding and immersive. A person signals confidence and self-control because it shows he can remain anchored in real-time experience without being overwhelmed by inner noise. A man's relationship with uncertainty is another central factor in attraction science. Women often observe whether he reacts to ambiguity with fear, rigidity, or frustration, or whether he maintains composure and curiosity. A positive relationship with uncertainty, such as being open to new ideas, comfortable with evolving dynamics, and willing to engage without needing instant guarantees, signals a psychological flexibility. This flexibility is attractive because it indicates that he can navigate emotionally complex experiences without destabilizing himself or others. Women tend to associate this trait with emotional intelligence and long-term relational adaptability. In attraction research, one behavior that consistently stands out is a man's ability to maintain inner neutrality when encountering differing opinions or emotionally charged statements. Women often test intentionally or unintentionally how a man handles a disagreement or mild tension. If he becomes defensive, argumentative, or visibly insecure, the interaction tends to lose hilarity because fragility. Conversely, when a man remains composed and responds with measured curiosity, such as asking clarifying questions or exploring the reasoning behind her perspective, he demonstrates emotional discipline. This form of calm engagement communicates that he is not threatened by difference, which makes him appear more stable and capable of maintaining balanced interactions under stress. Behavioral studies also highlight the significant role of proactive self-responsibility. Women generally respond more positively to men who take ownership of their decisions, habits, and life outcomes. When a man acknowledges responsibility for his successes and failures without externalizing blame, he signals maturity and inner control. In contrast, a man who consistently blame circumstances, past relationships, or external forces often appear emotionally underdeveloped. Responsibility is attractive because it reflects a growth-oriented mindset, an indication that the man can evolve, adapt, and learn from experiences without collapsing into self-pity or defensiveness. Thank you for watching. See you soon.